Hi, everybody. My name is Jamie. I am the Intuitive Lifestyle on TikTok and on Instagram. This is Caitlin Woolery. She is a clinical herbalist and specializes in naturopathic medicine. She is my practitioner. She is somebody I take my toddler to as well and helped us uncover and reveal so many amazing things and information and knowledge that I bring to you guys on a daily basis. So I wanted to bring Caitlin on, and we wanted to have this discussion for you moms out there and dads about diet for our kids. I get this question all the time. It's specifically, what diet do I use when my child is detoxing using PBX or the fulvic? Or what type of diet do I use for my child? We just found out they have methylation issues or MTHFR. We're going to cover autism and diet as far as that goes, ADHD, all of these things. And I think that, Caitlin, I've been talking with you, and it's like, we can do all these things. We can take all these supplements. We can detox, which is super important. I mean, our kids are so toxic right now. Like, that's important. But we're missing the boat on the biggest thing, which is the diet. So what are you seeing like in your practice? Like, what is your just like experience, and what is really going on with these kids in their diets?
Okay, it's such a good topic. Thank you, thank you, thank you for the lead there. Hi everyone. Hi Jamie's audience. First we should say that diets in general are extremely unique to the individual. So to really hone in and target is a very individual thing. An undermethylator is going to eat a little bit differently than an overmethylator. We have different constitutions. If we're going to take this to Ayurvedic or Chinese medicine, there are different foods that hold different energies that match the energy of a person's constitution. Like a person that has a lot of heat in their body isn't going to want to eat a lot of spicy food. So it gets unique, but in general, I'm going to talk in blanket terms today, where this generation is and where most parents are in our country. The underlying foundation and problem is that our society is inundated with chemicals that are being sold under the guise of food. People are eating poison. And so what we have to do is switch back to a single ingredient diet. That's the crux of it. And also feel free to interrupt me with questions at any time. But the foundation of what's happening is that we have the food is laden with chemicals. These chemicals are causing the symptoms of all the diseases you just named. They are throwing biochemical wrenches in the body in ways that you can't even truly imagine unless you are a scientist and spend 8 hours a day studying. But it is, we'll go into the enriched foods and the dyes and what's actually happening. But all these diseases that you just named are mostly being caused, all these downregulations and upregulations in the genome, the inappropriate upregulations and downregulations are being caused by the chemicals in the food. So the first step is to get rid of those things. It has to be done, and then to switch over to single ingredient foods. And so what I mean by that is when you pick up the food, it should not say anything on the label other than one food. So, and we'll get into snacky stuff that can sometimes combine a few things. Single ingredient foods. Apple is a single ingredient. Chicken breast is a single ingredient. Rice is a single ingredient. Oatmeal has one ingredient. So it's an all-inclusive diet that people can choose from. But it has to be simple single foods. So is it a plant you can recognize in nature? Olive oil, you know that there is such thing as an olive oil tree. Oatmeal, you know that it grows on a grain. So apple, like there's an apple tree in the world. We know where the food comes from. We don't know, is there a maltodextrin plant? There's not a maltodextrin plant out in nature. So we're returning to the earth. And then from there, we're returning to how our ancestors prepared these things. So for example, wheat or dairy, two big offenders, right? Those are single ingredient foods. Like you can pick up something that's packaged wheat, and you can go buy milk, and that's going to say one thing, milk and wheat. but has it been processed the way that we have been evolutionarily developed and designed? And have we evolved to consume that food in the same way that it's being prepared and consumed now? And the answer is no. So that puts us into a whole nother problem, because the way that dairy and wheat are being prepared are making the gut inflamed and sick, therefore damaging the brain and the nervous system. And so the goal is to prepare food as single ingredients the way that our ancestors did. And that in and of itself is going to be enough, about 90% enough, to reverse the symptoms, AKA cure. I won't say there's a cure, but it's enough to reverse and cure almost entirely all the diseases that you just described. And then from there, you fine tune based on the individual.
I have a question about this crazy acidic bodies. And that's what she was talking about, guys. When she says too much heat in the body, it means the body is too acidic. What is that doing? This just obscene amount of inflammation in our children's bodies. Can you give us signs and symptoms of a lot of inflammation? I think ASD children struggle with so much inflammation in their brain as well. Do you know what I mean? So can you kind of touch on that?
Huge. Yeah. Inflammation is basically the core of all disease.
Okay.
So, well, okay, what causes inflammation? Anytime there is stress in the body. And so what causes stress? The toxins in the food generate a tremendous amount of stress. That's
and
going
the you know what's as well.
Vacations.
Yeah.
The vacations. Yep. Anytime there's something foreign, I call it sinful. And this is not in a Christian context. Sin being anti-life or against life. Life is nature. If we align with nature, we will be healthy. Anytime we are injecting or consuming something that is man-made and against nature, not natural, we are in anti-life state, and that it will be disease. So the injections, the toxins, the metals in the air, all these things are coming into the body as foreign objects that are anti-life, that the body has to process for the first time in the history of humanity. We don't have enough cortisol, cholesterol. These are the anti-inflammatory agents in the body, and antioxidants to combat the amount of toxic inflammatory burden and overload. So that's why you see young kids with dark circles, is because their adrenals have been pumping so much cortisol to act as the anti-inflammatory to all these agents, and they're just drained. Their chi and their adrenals are drained by age 3, and their bodies are tired. They can't produce enough to fight this stuff. And so that's when you start to see all the symptoms, which is going to be gut distension, because inflammation is causing bloating. You're going to start to see neurological problems because those toxins have created so much inflammation. It permeates the holes in the gut. The toxins then go straight into the bloodstream, right?
Right.
Then the blood-brain barrier next, and then the toxins go into the brain, and you see neurological issues. Inflammation and heat can show up in so many ways. Like almost any single symptom could be a sign of inflammation, but anything autoimmune, because there's no such thing as the body attacking itself. That's a Western lie for sure. The body is attacking the inflammatory agent, trying to get it out of the body, and it looks like the body is attacking itself. It's not. So anytime there's an autoimmune diagnosis, that's the symptom of inflammation. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, what we're doing, and especially in my community, right, we're addressing the toxicity, we're addressing the heavy metal toxicity from all of these things that we're talking about, with using the heavy metal detox, with using the fulvic, healing up that leaky gut, using that as a binder. But that's essentially why we're here, right, is to talk about this diet. So getting back on that pathway. So we can talk, okay, so single ingredient foods. Okay. Because we want to give moms solutions, and we don't want to like freak them out, because I mean, even as a mom, I mean, it's kind of like, oh, well, she'll only eat this or she'll only eat that. Can you give us some sort of segue into how calming us down, letting us know like you can do this? And most of the time it's like, I believe in you, right? Like, isn't that what it is most of the time? It's like, I believe in you, you can do this, you're the mom, you care about your child. Like, do you want your kid to be walking around inflamed and creating diseases all the time? Like, you're in charge, right?
Yeah. And it's a combination of serious wake up call, tough love, and encouragement and inspiration. Just how you said it is pretty much the way it goes. So I will say this. A healthy child, and I have seen them. I lived in Hawaii, and I was in compounds and communities with children who had never had a vacation, who had never seen genetically modified food, and those kids craved bitter foods, sauerkraut. They could drink herbs. Their palates had been designed alongside nature and healthy food from day one, and so they craved the healthy stuff. These kids today, their bodies have been hijacked. This is what parents need to understand first and foremost. Their bodies have been hijacked by C. diff, candida, parasites, and it is scientifically proven, I'm getting chills, those low life form pathogens take over the host, dictate behavior. There's archonic energy running through it, and the kid has been turned into an addict by these chemicals in the food, which is the second form of hijacking. Your child wants healthy food. I promise you that. Your kid is not a picky eater. Your child has been hijacked and is an addict. And so the tough love side of it is that your child's not paying the bills, your child's not buying the food. It is the parent's job to break that addiction. They are the one in control, and they are the one responsible. And I know that there's a lot of guilt. Mother's guilt is a very real thing, and they don't want to see the kids suffer. And so they feed the child thinking it makes the child happy, but it's enabling the disease. And it is the parent's job to stop that cycle. And they can do it immediately in one fell swoop and rip the Band-Aid off. All at once and do a home detox. Your child will kick and scream for a minute. You're going to watch the child suffer, but in a few days, the child's going to get hungry and it will eat the food in front of him or her. And where you could do it slowly. I've worked with moms who have successfully and slowly implemented the changes, and those children have reversed autism. And it happened over the course of 6 months or a year, one way or another. You can choose which way it goes, but the steps have to be made. So taking that accountability and responsibility and getting the fire under your ass for that. And then, so in terms of, I wanted to address the second part of it, the inspiration side. It's like the divine energy moving through us. Our bodies are made from the earth, and they're made from a spiritual source of energy. And the earth and the spiritual source of energy want us to be in a vibrant state of health and creation and vitality. And so all we have to do is like make steps to remember and reclaim that. And that momentum is going to build on itself, and your kid's going to start to feel better slowly and surely. And you're going to want to do it more. And that kid's going to want to crave more food. And eventually that thing is going to take on a life of its own, and the healing is going to happen. And you just have to allow it and just be willing. That's it. Just be willing. That's all you have to do. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, speaking from somebody, with experience and eating all those Monsanto foods and never having any nutrients in my diet whatsoever. I mean, it was Coca-Cola, it was bologna sandwiches, it was what were those pastries that I loved for toaster strudels for breakfast? Oh my God, favorite thing ever in the whole world. I would love to eat one of those. You know what I mean? But growing up with that and not being able, like, I learned how to cook with a microwave.
Me too.
Okay. So that has been my biggest struggle. And if you don't get your child in a healthy habit, they will continue this pattern on. And we are so programmable, and it is hard to deprogram.
Yep.
Okay. Without some serious pain and some serious spiritual help, it is hard to unprogram yourself. So keeping that in mind, I mean, just anybody who's watching, think about a habit that you have that you just can't, you have such a hard time breaking, like you just grew up with it. That's just who you are. And, it's really not, it's just a program. And if we can get this and nip it in the butt, your child is going to grow up and eat healthy and thrive. Mm-hmm. And their brains is going to work better. Their bodies are going to work better. They're not going to be sick all the time. Mm-hmm. Because we're nature, and naturally, they want the healing foods. They will naturally gravitate towards those healing foods. I remember my child, when she was 1 year old, we would give her hard-boiled eggs. She'd take the white off and just eat the yellow, just eat the yolk. And most moms don't understand also how choline is so important for these little babies' brains and our kids. Mm-hmm. So important, but I would just watch her in awe.
She knew wow. Intuitively. Yeah, when they have not been hijacked, they intuitively will know exactly what to go towards. Yes. Their intuition is so much better than adults.
Yep. So we have this big problem. We have the heavy metal toxicity, the toxic food, we have the parasites and candida. It's just a circle of life that is just, it's dark and it's fueling itself. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and also honey. Let's touch on honey for a second, because honey is a single ingredient food. Are we able to give that to our kids? Just give them to take care of their sweet tooth while we're, kind of detoxing them off of processed sugar? Can they dip their chicken in it? Can we use that for French toast kind of situation?
The raw honey has, if you really dive down to the health benefits of raw honey, it is a magical food. It is bee medicine, and also a little bit of tree medicine too, because they're gathering to make the hive from cuts and sap in the tree. So you're combining the bee medicine and the tree medicine, two very, very powerful healers in nature. So anything with honey does absolute wonders on the body. It's not going to mess up blood sugar. It's not going to cause insulin resistance. It heals all of the things that processed sugar causes. And so by all means, use that as a medium to come off, and to also help the child take herbs that still taste gross to the kid as the taste buds and the palate adjust and rearrange. I'm not even in the camp that young children under 2 shouldn't have it. That's just I also don't believe that pregnant women shouldn't eat raw fish and raw cheese. I think a lot of that is don't at your own risk. This is just my humble opinion. I would yeah. So yes to raw honey. Absolutely. Especially if you buy it near you, that's even more powerful.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, good. And now, how much protein should a child be eating? I mean, let's talk toddlers up at, like, how much protein should they be getting?
So that is really tricky. If you that's one of those things that falls into the 10% very individualized. So if you and here's a little bit of how that works. So for example, take the microbiome GI test. I run this on a lot of the children, and that test will show there's certain strains of bacteria that are responsible for breaking down carb macros. There's certain strains of bacteria that break down the protein. So some of these results will come back, and these children are off the charts in the red zone for protein metabolism, because they have already had 5 rounds of antibiotics for the ear infections and all this stuff, and it's wiped out their gut's ability to break down protein. And so it's causing bloating and distension. And so that's one of those things that's kind of individualized, but just lab work there.
Labs is so important because everybody's so individual. Okay, let's talk about fruit. Can children eat a lot of fruit? Is that okay? We hear about it breaking down into sugar and all these things. Like, can they have a big diet full of fruit?
Yes, the fruit is so good. So here's the thing about fruit. Fruit has natural structured water. The form of water in fruit is O3. Oh shoot, O3H3. It's different than water in tap or spring or anything. It's actually structured into these divine, sacred, geometrical shapes, as if you were like Dr. Emoto's work, like structure the water in bowls.
Organic fruit.
Okay.
Yeah. No, never ever, guys, GMO ever.
Yeah, okay. Never GMO. In fact, if you cut open GMO fruit or vegetables, it's like chaos patterns, and regular fruit from nature or heirloom has perfect pattern, like nature, order versus chaos, health versus disease. So non-GMO organic, critical. So the body's preferred source of fuel, like the gut bacteria, for the brain prefers sugar, then fat second. The gut prefers carbohydrates, sugar, and then protein and fat secondary. So it's the kids, they crave fruit. Like even a lot of autistic kids, they'll still eat fruit. And
she'll eat it all day long. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. That's what she wants.
And this is common, like sometimes I'll get food journals from people and their kids eating fruit all day long. I'm like, these kids love fruit. If the fruit is good source, the fruit has a lot of prebiotic inulin type, not oligosaccharide, FOS, prebiotic stuff that goes in and feeds the gut bacteria in a major way, in a good way. And it's highly detoxifying. There's so many antioxidants. It's just like, with all things, we want balance. I'm starting to wonder if like this generation being born are going to turn into fruitarian and breath air. Like we're going through this weird evolutionary genome crisis right now. And I'm wondering, like, is the future of humanity not even going to eat? Is that what's going on right now?
Yeah, It's why I'm like, what am I, you can't just eat fruit, but I'm happy to know this information. I also want to touch on mineral dense foods. We're
Yeah.
seeing these dark circles under these kids' eyes. I know it's connected to kidneys. It's also connected to the gut and like mineral deficiency, big time, right? So yes, we recommend the fulvic, and that's huge for sealing up the gut. It's huge for all the minerals. But food, tell us what to do for mineral dense food.
It's almost impossible at this point. Like, it's such a crisis because unless you're growing it in your own backyard and building your soil, or you have done due diligence and research to find biodynamic farmers that are in sync with the natural ancient ways of food preparation, we're basically eating. Minerals are inorganic and cannot be synthesized. You can make vitamins out of pesticides. So our food is very rich in vitamins. That's inorganic or that's organic and can be produced even under Monsanto chemicals. Vitamins can be synthesized. Minerals, a whole nother beast of a problem. Once they're gone from the soil, I mean, it takes a lot to build them back in. So we're in crisis with minerals. I did a video on this about a year ago. And the solution, I was praying on this and like going into my deep herbal knowledge. In order to get minerals back in our body, we have to go to the places that have been still uncontaminated, in a way that not contaminated in the way that farming has. The forests, the wild areas, and the ocean. So the most critical one, you already nailed it with the fulvic, because that's been removed from ag. Big ag has removed the fulvic and the trace minerals. So that's critical. Then we go to the ocean, and that's going to be the hypertonic ocean plasmas. Do not buy Quinton or Amazon stuff. It's diluted and shit. You have to really know where you're getting ocean plasma from. But ocean plasma has a perfect minerals ratio and spectrum that's identical to the human blood. And so when these kids that have all these illnesses when their hair panels come back, it shows metals and minerals. Their minerals are in a deranged transport. Their ratios are haywire. They're not functioning.
Scary.
It's really scary. But you start giving them ocean plasma and fulvic, two other ways, and it starts to balance out. So then there's two other ways. So we get plants that have been grown outside of commercial agriculture, from the forest, from the wild places, wildcraft herbs, and we make teas out of them. And the main herbs for that: nettle, high density; alfalfa, roots grow 50 feet into the ground, and it's pulling even the monatomic minerals up into the alfalfa. Red raspberry has a lot of CalMag. That's natural if kid can't eat dairy. Horsetail, also highly mineral dense. So make a tea out of those things. Cook with it if the child won't drink it. So put the broth in rice, put the broth into the oatmeal. And then the other thing is making mineral dense broth. So getting a bunch of vegetable scraps and potato skins and onion skins, and then making a vegetable broth with that, with some seaweed, some dulse added back in, and then cook with that mineral broth. And I have a recipe for it. You can post it up somewhere.
I love that. And okay, so what about the dandelion root and licorice root and all those things? I mean, aren't those super, super mineral dense as well? What else did you give me? There's marshmallow root in there. I do this concoction all the time. There's another one. Oh, it's burdock root. So yeah. I make that concoction, and there's, I with Charlie, my toddler, I make her take Brainchild Nutritionals, that.
Yeah.
For her vitamins, and I suck it up with a plastic syringe, and that's what I do with the tea. It's here, line up because you're getting this one too. Here's your water. I don't care. You know what I mean? That's yes. Here you go. Here's your water, sweetheart. Mm-hmm. After you're done, I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah, thank you. So this is like, I can't tell you, my kid doesn't like that. My kid doesn't want the syringe. My kid fights the syringe. I'm like, who's in control? You or your child? I know you think your kid doesn't like that, but here's what you're doing when you syringe the herbal medicine. You are retraining that child's palate to want to drink the tea on the child's own merit. And as there's a principle in herbal medicine called developing resonance. So when someone who does not have a taste for the earth, which we should, but it's when that taste has been removed and you start to introduce the flavor of the herb, the first response is going to be, I don't want it, I don't like it. But they will develop a resonance, adults too, where the taste, as the disgusting herbs heal the body will start to crave those herbs and want more of them. And that's the beginning of the healing process and the reversal. So you being like, I'm sorry, tough love, this is going down your throat, is like, Thank you. Thank you. You're saving your child's life.
No, I really think that it's just all about like a mom community and us coming together and being like, we're gonna run this show like for our kids. Like we need to come together. It's a commonality where people, and I've been on that bandwagon too, where moms are like, nope, they only eat chicken nuggets and French fries.
Oh, the chicken
You know,
nugget.
and then I was like, yeah, she only eats, and I was like, wait half a minute, like no, we're not doing that. She can't. She cannot just eat those things.
No.
Oh, you know what I mean? And it's just this commonality where it's like, yeah, it's just the way it is. And it's like that with a lot of things, but we cannot do that with our children. It's been like that at the pediatrician well visits as well, where that is something that is just normal. Questioning it, you know what I mean, is not okay, not accepted. You're just hoping for the best, you know, that's not right. So I just think it is that mom community. Okay.
Thank
So
you.
also I want to touch on real quick, okay, let's talk about diet with ASD kiddos, okay? Kiddos who are under this bracket of a description of symptoms, right? Because that's what autism is a description of symptoms, right? Mold, Clostridium, issues of the dopamine pathway, methylation issues, heavy metal toxicity, gut issues, the list goes on, right? Parasites, okay, candida, that is ASD. So when we have those issues, those little children are hijacked. They will only eat certain things, right? And this is very tough. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the foods with the glutamate, right? Like that are turning into glutamate. Okay, let's talk about the kids having leaky gut, how they can, the casein and cheese. Like, can we just, for moms who come to my group and they're just awaiting an autism diagnosis, or they just got diagnosed and that they have a effing year to wait to see anybody about it. And anyways, Caitlin, they wouldn't do anything. They would say, this is what it is. Can't treat it. You know what I mean? You're totally screwed. That's what but for those moms and who are in my group who are using the detox, who are using the fulvic, can we give them some direction on diet?
Yes. Okay. So anything, this is in my foods to avoid list. Casein is a different topic. I'm not going to include casein in this because this is actually, there's, I think, conspiracy and intentional misinformation around casein. We'll talk about it.
Okay.
But the glutamate foods, the red dyes, and the enriched fortified foods have to go. Like, consider it as never, not even an 80-20 rule. Like, it is permanently done. Yeah. Until the child has had full reversal and is better, and then it can handle a little bit of those things, but during the healing phase has to go. So the glutamate foods, what's basically happening in autism is that their bodies are so inundated in stress response, meaning the catecholamines, norepinephrine, epinephrine, dopamine, and glutamate, which is the excitatory chemical neurotransmitters in the brain. Okay. In a really simple nutshell, MTHFR controls methylation. Methylation controls detox. People think that means body can't flush toxins. We're detoxing environmental stuff. No, we are detoxing out the breakdown of neurotransmitters, the breakdown of stress hormones. So after the stress hormones have been built up in metabolism, they have to be detoxed out. And so these MTHFR kids cannot detox out the stress hormones and the glutamate excitatory neurotransmitters. And so their brain is spinning with these stress hormones. And then when you eat glutamate foods, which are a lot of them, and when you eat red dyes, which are excitotoxins, you're backing up an already exacerbated problem, and the brain is spinning and so inundated that speech can't even come out of the mouth. So these foods have to be removed. And just real quick tangent, 2 seconds on the enriched foods, is that if you look at what they are enriching foods with, they are using chemicals to strip the nutrients out of the food, and they take their synthetic shit lab versions of the vitamins and add them back in. Folic acid is the B vitamin they enrich these foods with, and MTHFR methylated kids cannot have folic acid. It is causing the methylation problem. They fortify with ferrous sulfate iron. The parasite's #1 food is that form of iron.
God.
So they're literally feeding the kids. It's like demonic shit. They're feeding the kids stuff to cause the downregulation of the MTHFR, and then they're giving the parasites food at the same time that they're doing it. So anything fortified, if you see enriched, it means any carbohydrate, any grain, like you pick up that label, you look at it. If you see enriched, if you see vitamins added back in, put it back on the shelf.
Folic acid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
The casein is a little bit of a different story. So
Okay.
casein, if you look at the health benefits of casein, it is profound. It is actually a neuroprotectant. It's a slow protein that's not damaged with heat. So it balances blood sugar as it breaks down. It builds the immune system and muscle like crazy. It makes the strong kids. Casein is deep medicine.
But in raw dairy though. Okay. So that is the problem is right? Is pasteurized and all that dairy versus the real casein in raw dairy.
Casein casein has become the scapegoat for malpractice on the side of the producers. And so that's not the problem. It will eventually trigger an allergen, same as lactose, because the heat, the pasteurization and homogenization has removed the enzyme responsible for breaking the lactose down. So that goes into the body and the body can't break down. All of a sudden the immune system is going to attack it and looks like the allergy. The problem is in the production. Go to Weston Price, realmilk.org, figure out a dairy farmer near you whose cows are out on the grass and not homogenizing and pasteurizing. Feed your kid that milk and there's no problem. Unless there's a true allergy. Like sometimes people are allergic to shellfish and casein can be an actual allergy, but for the most part, it's a total scapegoat lie.
Wow. Okay. And so just to kind of clarify, so ASD kiddos having issues detoxing the byproducts from the neurotransmitters, right? But at the same time, we also have problems detoxing normally. I just wanted to, I just want to clear that up for people where they're just like, wait, what? It's just that. So I just want to clear that up for people as well. And why it is super important for them to continue making sure low toxin lifestyle. You know what I mean? The heavy metal detox is really important for these kids. A lot of times too, Kate, we're seeing heavy metal toxicity, and this is, I don't know, 10% being misdiagnosed as ASD.
Interesting. Yeah. Yep. And
a
lot of it is just misdiagnosed.
So, I mean, like I said, it's a small percentage, but at the same time, it's just all of these things. Wow. Thank you so much. I don't know if I have any other questions regarding diet. I think that you really, really nailed it. And Caitlin, you have a do's and don'ts kind of food list, and for sauces for children. Okay. You have, what's it called? Because I have their ketchup in my Primal Kitchen.
Yes.
Okay. So I use those sauces. I like sauces. I love them, but they're super clean. They have the clean ketchup, all of those things. So is that okay for those kids to get Primal Kitchen sauces?
Totally. Yeah. And there's hacks. Like I have a snack list. There's certain snacks out there that are really, really legit, and you can still feed your kids those snacks, but it takes a lot to dig down to what those snacks are. Primal Kitchen is one of those, like where you're going through the food system and you're being a ninja and like, where can I buy and what? Primal Kitchen is a total win. Okay. Lara bars do pretty well if you get the 2 ingredients. There's like some Epic brand. There's the activated trail mix. There's little hacks that you can find with the snacks.
Okay, good. And then, so we're right on par for that 30-minute for the diet. But I also, oh my God, wanted to talk about one more thing. What was it? How did I just lose that? Okay, snacks. Oh, can MTHFR be reversed?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. All this can. Yes. That's the number one thing that they're discovering with epigenetics, is that all the genes are turning. There's this whole movement or this whole theory that like our genes they doom us, right? And it's like, oh, if I have this breast cancer gene and my mom had breast cancer, I'm getting breast cancer. Well, that thought just made it so. That's not true. Genes are going on and off all the time. And there are like metaphysical professors at the UC Berkeley when I went to school, and they would be on the board 64 dots for the 64 genes. And they would describe how frequencies of thought and emotion would move through it with love really fast and activate the genes. Fear, slow, does not activate the genes. Our genes are turned on and off with how we think, how we feel, how much stress we're under, most importantly with diet. So all these foods that they're selling in the store, down regulation of the human genome all day long. It's going to be like the CDC talked about the zombie apocalypse. It's not going to be like as what we think in the movies. These kids with the down regulation from these foods is the zombie apocalypse versus if you eat a healthy diet, you're going to turn the genetic expression on to be perfect. And there are children, I've seen kids who have double copies of MTHFR, both RSs of it. And so you would think their MTHFR is functioning at like 15 to 30%, not a single symptom of it because the diet is on lock. The lifestyle is on lock. The child's not under stress, out of the public school system. Everything is okay. So we're not at whim it's not like we're in charge. We are empowered. Like,
so the toxins are turning on these gene SNPs, right? Are turning on these genes, and so was the diet. The toxins in the diet, essentially, the food that's not real food. It's not nutrition, not from there. Wow. Okay.
Can I add one quick thing that we didn't touch on that's really important? These kids' guts are really, really degenerated, and guts, and if the digestive organs are not functioning on par, raw food is very rarely handled unless, of course, it's fruit. So for a lot of these diets, it's going to be important to eat cooked vegetables, soups, vegetable purees, warm oatmeals. That's the ancient Chinese medicine way of healing. So if you really want, if your child has gut issues, MTHFR, autism, any of these things, cooked warm food diets is going to expedite the healing the fastest. It alleviates the stress on the digestive organs and frees up the biological energy to move to the brain and heal and to get this inflammation out of the body. So that's just like a piece that was worth saying in there. So warm.
Real quick, with MTHFR and the lack of electrolytes that are held in the body, and they're like, how can we fix that, right? Sea salt, Celtic seas, putting more salt. These kids need more freaking electrolytes.
Salt and potassium. So the ocean plasma, that fills the salt right away. And then potassium. So the cellular function and the nervous system and the brain all function because of the interchange. Potassium is the intercellular mineral. Sodium's outside, and they do a transport gradient exchange to make the whole nervous system function. So high potassium foods, that's vegetables and fruits, and sodium, that's going to be like super critical. So yeah, back to the mineral stuff. If you're eating minerals and ocean plasma, fulvic, you're going to be on point in terms of electrolytes.
Nice. That's so tight. Those are staples in our house. So, okay, good. All right. Well, this was amazing. And I'm sure we'll end up doing a part 2 as well. So thank you so much for your time. If anybody wants to get a hold of Caitlin, seeing her, I have all her information in my Telegram. I think it's in my link tree still. Comment, on here. We'll get you set up. Nice. Oh, here, why don't you plug your Facebook page and your website?
How do I do that?
Just say your website.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant enter it into the screen. I'm like,
no, sorry.
It's veritasbotanicals.com is my website. VERITAS botanicals.com. And I'm Caitlin Woolery on Facebook. CAITLIN WOOLERY.
Yay. Okay, great. As always, I love you so much. It's a pleasure.
I love you too.
Okay.
Bye. Everybody.